Welcome to Los Olivos Wine Merchant Cafe, where you not only taste great Central Coast wines and great Central Coast foods, but you also get to meet the winemaker. And today we have Sarah Mullins from Rancho Sisquoc. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here.
Great to be here.
Good. And so we'll start off with our first question that we ask the winemakers, and that is, if you could sum up your winemaking style in one word, what would it be?
It would have to be love, and I know it sounds corny, especially coming from a girl, but I love this wine, and I love this place, and everything that has to go along with it. Winemaking is not easy by any sense, and if you don't love what you're doing, you really shouldn't be doing it. And so each bottle that goes out of that winery is definitely one of my children, and I take it very seriously, and I love it all, the whole package, from sales to making the wine to the vineyard. If you don't love it, then it's not going to be good at the end.
Well, fantastic. So put a little bit of love in each wine, plus not only the wine that you make, you love doing that, but you're working it in Rancho Sisquoc, which is like this magical 30,000 acre place that the first time I went to Rancho Sisquoc and went to a wine tasting there, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like in another dimension or something. It is a really special place. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you get to work with the vineyards there and just the location?
I think you said it perfectly. It is magical. We are in a different dimension. It's almost set back in time. It's about 38,000 acres. It's a large piece of land, and we use about 1,100 acres of Rancho Sisquoc for all that we produce. So Rancho Sisquoc's vineyards are about 300 acres, and we use 20% of that for our own production. So everything is estate grown and estate produced on Rancho Sisquoc. And then we do gravel mining. We have 1,000 head of cattle.
Wow.
We lease land for vegetables. We lease vineyard land. And then we sell a lot of our grapes commercially. And so there's so much happening on the ranch that we all live there. Everyone that owns or has a position that's a non-owner lives on the ranch. And so we have our cattle foreman, our vineyard foreman, our ranch managers, winemaker, assistant winemaker. We're all living on Rancho Sisquoc. So it's day in and day out that we're caring for this land, for these grapes, for the wines. We never really stop doing what we do, from coffee in the morning to cocktails at night. And we're producing this product that, again, where love comes in, it's everything. We give our entire selves to this land and to these wines, and I think it comes through in the end. And you couldn't do any of this without each other. And if you surround yourself with amazing people, and you surround the wine with amazing people, at the end of the day, you can taste the difference.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get where you are today here?
It's funny. I was born and raised in Rancho Sisquoc. So I was
Really?
Yes. I've
wow.
been on Rancho Sisquoc my whole life.
That's great.
My father and mother moved to Rancho Sisquoc in 1976, and my dad was a tractor driver, and my mom hoed beans because we were one of the largest garbanzo bean producers at the time. And they were farmers from Missouri, teenagers, right off the wedding block and right into Rancho Sisquoc. And they started as field workers and eventually worked their way up. My dad is responsible for planting most of the vineyards on Rancho Sisquoc, experimental planting, and my mother has always ran the tasting room and the sales portion of it. And so coming from that background, watching them work their way up from the bottom to the top is how I learned through hard work you could pretty much accomplish anything.
Right.
And so working side by side with them, some of my first jobs on the ranch were painting the bottom of the walnut trees or taking care of the bar that everyone would put their feet on in the tasting room. And I was always interested in walking out and seeing what people would come. And it used to be you'd ring a bell and we'd bring a bottle of wine out, and then the person would end up staying all night. And now to see hundreds and hundreds of people flocking to this tasting room and coming out to see the magic and experience Rancho Sisquoc for what it is, it's been this amazing journey to get to be part of it. So as a child, I started off watching and helping and picking up a broom and being part of whatever I could. And then through the years, of course, when I turned 18, a teenager on a ranch in the middle of nowhere is not good. You go wild, you do. Ran like a cat like a cat with their tail on fire away from there when I turned 18. And then as life happens, following my intuition and going places, I ended up back on the ranch. And the winemaker at the time saw me, and I was cleaning windows for some money to head back and forth all over the country. And I was washing windows, and he says, "Hey, Sarah, what are you doing? Can you help out?" He had to let someone go right in the middle of harvest. I'm like, "No, I gotta go. I gotta get off this ranch." And that was 14 years ago.
Wow.
And so I started that first harvest just working for the winemaker at the time. And I'd never really fully immersed myself into production until that day. And I was kind of scared of it. I was more at ease in the vineyard or in front of people selling wine or tasting wine, of course, and drinking wine. I didn't realize that there was this beautiful happening that was happening right beside me my whole life. And as soon as he invited me to step in, I realized, wow, this is everything I've always wanted to do. I love the hard work. I love that if I worked harder than everyone else, that I could get higher. And if I just squeezed my way in there and pushed the boys out of the way, I could get in there. And I just had to be strong enough, and didn't let the feet ache or the bloody hands get to you, and you work your way in there. And I love that part about the winery. And then you had this grape, and this grape ended up in this glass, and to watch this fermentation of the life of that grape was amazing to me. I thought it ended in the vineyard, and then I got to see a fermentation for the first time. And then I got one handed to me for the first time and said, "Okay, you take control of this, and if something goes wrong or doesn't smell right, let's fix it together. Let's find out what it needs. Does it need more oxygen? Does it need more nutrients?" And getting to take care of something fully in your own hands, and then to have that product come out, and then to learn a little patience and wait and see, and if you do this, this will happen, and getting to see that experience and to taste it and feel it and smell it for the first time, I was sold. And I didn't ever want to walk out of the winery ever again. It's so important in the wine industry to understand the full package. It's not just that I have amazing assistant and enologists beside me, but I also have grape growers that care so much about the vineyard that we walk those vines and taste every single day during harvest. And then your salespeople that come back and give you the information that you need to know about the market and listening to the customer. And then there's the customer. We have wine club members that have been with us for 22 years, and we sit down with them once a year and say, "Okay, what did you like this year, and what would you like to see in the future?" And if you have this whole package around you, and it's kind of like a warm blanket as a winemaker, and there's history there, and you're trying to learn, and all of these things are surrounding you, and you get that full package, it makes sense. The balance happens on its own, and you're just part of it. And it's amazing. Yeah, our lineup is pretty extensive, but I like it. I think that it allows our customer base, we hope that we have something for the novice, someone who's just trying to figure out what wine is and not be so scared. Like you said, when you go out to that tasting room, it's not overwhelming, it's welcoming, and it says, "Okay, if you've never tasted wine before, come in, have the Riesling, have the Sylvaner, try something that's a little bit sweeter. Then you move into your Pinot Noir, and then to your Syrah, to your Bordeaux, all the way, the whole spectrum of grapes that we're producing out there is something for everyone. And then at a price that everyone can afford.
Right.
And that's been what's solid about Rancho Sisquoc, is continuing the tradition of quality wine at a very reasonable price. It sounds gimmicky, but it's just solid. It's a solid standpoint to be. It's a good label to be behind, so everyone can enjoy wine.
Right, it's a great value. In other words, I always look for wines that taste a lot better than what they sell for. Mm-hmm. And I think Rancho Sisquoc is kind of like that. You get really nice wines that you can afford,
Exactly.
which is really great. And then we have some wines that we're going to be pouring here at the Los Olivos Wine Merchant Cafe. There's three of them. We have a red blend, and that is called Trebini, right? We have a Merlot, and we're going to have a Sylvaner.
Perfect.
As well.
But on the ranch, we do a lot of experimental winemaking and then experimental grape growing. We have high cordon Pinot Noir and Syrah out there, and we're taking even some of our Bordeaux to high cordon to give it that great canopy, and a heavier producing vine that sometimes is frowned upon is actually some grapes like that. And just taking chances, and I think my father has a lot to do with that. He took a lot of chances in the vineyard and just went for it and said, "No, we're just going to go ahead and try it this way." And I think, being able to have that many years in the industry, he's been growing grapes for over 40 years there, and you've got to listen. Sometimes you just got to shut up and listen to the guys that know what they're doing.
Yeah, if someone's
and
been doing it for 40 years, you want to listen to everything they tell you about the vineyards and the grapes.
I think it's time to hear him, and even just to be here, it's very humbling to know where we came from, and then to go out and be in a restaurant and talk to someone or a chef or an owner that's had the wine and they've had an experience, and you can tell me a story about it. It's everything. It's exciting. It's why else would we be doing it? It's wine. It's supposed to be fun.
Absolutely.
We could be making a whole lot worse, you know?
That's right.
But we get to do wine, and
it brings people together. Open a bottle of wine, people hang out and drink wine and talk about life.
It does, yeah.
So, what do you try to do with the Trait Vineyard? You do a blend. How do you decide what blends to put in there?
So some years it's different. Sangiovese, as you know, is just this. It's overpowering and it's beautiful on its own. And then what they decided to do was somewhat of, I don't know if you call it a filled blend, but they would just decide, okay, the next two grapes that came in after the Sangiovese, we want to make a Sangiovese-based blend. And they would blend the grapes together. That was the old style. And then now it's just been really fun to see year after year which grapes are going to balance that Sangiovese.
Right.
And in this particular vintage, the Petit Verdot came in and was this just beautiful blanket for the Sangiovese to lay on, with a little bit of that earth of Merlot that came in and spiced it up on the end. And so that particular vintage, that's sort of how it happened. The Petit Verdot was the standout. And it just meshed really well.
Yeah. And then the Sylvaner. Tell us a little bit about Sylvaner, because not many people make Sylvaner.
No, we're one of the only one of the few wineries that make it. It's usually used for blending. It's found in Franken and then Alsace, and it's mostly German varietal. What I can say about Sylvaner is mostly starting from the grapes. So this is the oldest grapes that we have on the ranch now. These were planted in the 60s. And our old ranch manager had marched with Patton and tasted Sylvaner in Europe and said, I'm going to bring Sylvaner to the ranch when they started planting. He said, I know of this grape. It's going to be great. You'll see. And oh my goodness, this thing grows heavenly. It doesn't have a lot of hard times with frost or too cold, too hot. It just consistently comes off the vine. And it comes off a little brown and sticky and snotty is the best way to describe it. Actually, my assistant winemaker, Stephen, he runs on that day during harvest. We have to kind of put it through the ringer. It's so sticky, so mucky that it clogs up our machinery.
Oh, no.
It's a pain. It really is. It squirts out all orifices that you didn't even know were on machinery. Just all of a sudden, the Sylvaner hits you in the face. And it's brown, and you couldn't even imagine that it turns into this beautiful, clear wine.
Yeah.
And then for us, it comes off. We do really cold fermentation on it, and we use actually a yeast Geisem Steinberg Geisem German yeast on it, and it comes out really cold, really long to get the aromatics out, very green apple, pears, and then we keep a little bit of residual sugar in it just to balance out the acid, because it can have a little bit of high acid, and it's the perfect picnic wine. So when someone comes in, or I'll drink it if it's a hot day and I have to drink wine and not beer, and it's the Sylvaner that you go for. It's just a perfect, pleasant wine, and I think we keep doing it because why wouldn't you?
Right.
If you have the grapes, make
people
the wine.
like it. It sells, and people likes it,
and nowadays with everyone looking for something different, it's actually perfect.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so Sarah, thanks for being here. It was great to talk with you a little bit about what you do, how you got there, your wines, and and all the best too.
Well, thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.